Lisa and I met in college, and from the moment I saw her, I knew she was something special. She had this magnetic energy, someone who could light up a room without even trying. She wasn't just beautiful, though she definitely was. She was sharp, confident, and had this effortless charm that made people gravitate toward her. I was just another engineering student, more comfortable with numbers and circuits than with socializing, but somehow, we clicked. It all started at a mutual friend's party. I wasn't even supposed to be there, but my roommate dragged me along, insisting I needed to get out more. I remember standing awkwardly by the drinks table, mentally preparing myself for a long night of small talk, when Lisa walked up, grabbed a soda, and gave me this knowing smirk. "You don't look like you belong here," she said, tilting her head slightly, studying me. I shrugged. "Because I don't." She laughed, and that was it. We spent the rest of the night talking, not about the usual college nonsense, but about real things. Movies, travel, our dreams for the future. She told me she wanted to work in marketing, that she loved understanding what made people tick. I told her I wanted to start my own business one day, something in tech. By the time the party ended, I knew two things. One, I was completely hooked, and two, I was way out of my league. But somehow, she didn't seem to think so. Our relationship moved fast after that. We became inseparable, spending late nights at coffee shops, studying in the library, sneaking off campus for cheap diner food. She brought me out of my shell, introduced me to her friends, and showed me how fun life could be when you weren't buried in textbooks. And in return, I gave her something steady, something real. After graduation, we built our lives together. I landed a solid job in IT, eventually working my way up to starting my own consulting firm. Lisa climbed the corporate ladder in marketing, excelling in every role she took. We got married in a beautiful fall ceremony, nothing extravagant, just close friends and family, exactly how we wanted it. We bought a house in the suburbs a year later, a cozy place with a big backyard and enough space to grow. Lisa was the social one, always making plans, always bringing life into our home. I was more of a homebody, happy to let her take the lead when it came to our social life. She loved hosting dinner parties, filling our weekends with gatherings, and I loved seeing her in her element, laughing, storytelling, making everyone feel welcome. From the outside, and even from the inside, we had a great life. A happy marriage, successful careers, a strong partnership. And for a long time, I truly believed that nothing could shake that. Married life with Lisa was, in many ways, exactly what I had hoped for. We complemented each other perfectly. Her outgoing nature balanced my quieter tendencies, and my stability grounded her adventurous spirit. It wasn't one of those fairy tale romances you see in movies, but it was real, solid, and filled with love. We settled into a comfortable routine early on. I focused on growing my IT consulting business, while Lisa thrived in her career in marketing. She had a natural talent for persuasion and creativity, always coming up with new strategies and ideas that made her stand out at work. I admired that about her, how she could walk into a room and immediately take control of the conversation. Our home became a reflection of us, a mix of her stylish, modern tastes and my more practical, minimalist approach. She decorated every room with care, filling the space with warm colors, framed photos from our travels, and little personal touches that made the house feel like home. I handled the more technical side of things, setting up a smart home system, organizing our finances, making sure everything ran smoothly. Even though we were both busy, we always made time for each other. Friday nights were our thing. Sometimes we'd go out for dinner at our favorite Italian place. Other times we'd stay in with takeout and a bottle of wine. Lisa loved trying new restaurants, always convincing me to step out of my comfort zone and experience something different. I wasn't the most adventurous when it came to food, but she had a way of making everything seem exciting. Vacations were another one of her passions. She had a never-ending list of places she wanted to visit, and every year, we'd pick a new destination. Paris, Santorini, Tokyo. We explored the world together, and I cherished every moment. She was the kind of traveler who wanted to experience everything, local markets, hidden gems, street food vendors, while I preferred a more relaxed approach, taking in the sights without rushing from place to place. But somehow, we always found a balance. Lisa also had a wide social circle, and while I wasn't as social as she was, I enjoyed the gatherings she put together. She had this ability to make every get-together feel special, whether it was a casual barbecue in our backyard or a more formal dinner party. Our friends often joked that she could have been an event planner with how effortlessly she orchestrated everything. We had talked about having kids one day, but we weren't in a rush. For now, it was just us, and we were happy. At least, that's what I believed. If you asked anyone who knew us, they'd tell you Lisa and I had a great marriage. And for the longest time, I believed that too. We had built a life that worked, our careers were thriving, our home was filled with laughter, and we genuinely enjoyed each other's company. We weren't the kind of couple that needed constant excitement. Some weekends, we'd go out with friends, try a new restaurant, or take a spontaneous weekend trip. Other times, we were just as happy lounging at home, binge-watching a new show or tackling a home project together. Lisa had a way of making even the most mundane things fun. Grocery shopping turned into an impromptu date night. Cleaning the house became a ridiculous dance party. She was full of energy, and I loved that about her. She had always been a social butterfly, and I never minded that. She had her own set of friends from work and her various hobbies, while I had mine. We both valued our independence, which I thought was one of the reasons our relationship worked so well. We weren't the type to be glued at the hip. We trusted each other completely. Lisa had a growing interest in fitness over the last couple of years, something that started as a casual hobby but quickly became a big part of her life. She had always been naturally slim, but she became more invested in working out, trying new diets, and setting personal goals. I supported her completely. She was proud of the progress she was making, and I loved seeing her so motivated about something. She even convinced me to start going to the gym with her. It wasn't really my thing, but I enjoyed the time we spent together. She'd coach me through workouts, playfully tease me about my lack of flexibility, and celebrate every small victory like I had just won a marathon. It was just another way she brought excitement into our everyday life. Looking back, I realize now how much I took for granted. I thought we were happy, that we had everything we needed. Our home, our love, our future, it all felt secure. But security is just an illusion, isn't it? Because not long after, everything changed. It started as just another evening. We had finished dinner, and Lisa was lounging on the couch with a glass of wine, scrolling through her phone. I was sitting across from her, half watching a show, half checking emails from work. Everything felt normal until she spoke. "I've been thinking about something," she said, her tone casual, but there was an edge to it. I looked up. "Yeah? What's on your mind?" She took a slow sip of wine, then set the glass down. "I want to talk to you about." "I don't know, maybe opening up our marriage." I blinked. "What?" She tilted her head slightly, as if testing the waters. "I mean, we've been together for a long time, and things are good, but don't you ever wonder what it would be like to, explore a little? With other people?" At first, I thought she was joking. I actually let out a short laugh, waiting for her to smirk and say she was messing with me. But she didn't. She just sat there, watching me, waiting for a response. My stomach dropped. "Lisa, where the hell is this coming from?" She sighed, tucking her legs underneath her. "I've just been thinking about it. A lot of people do it, you know? It's not like it means anything. It's just an experience. Something new. I love you, and I don't want to change anything between us, but I think it could be exciting." Exciting. I stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. Lisa and I had always been open about things. We could talk about anything. But this was out of nowhere. "So let me get this straight," I said slowly. "You're happy in our marriage, you don't want to leave me, but you want to sleep with other people?" She winced at my phrasing but didn't deny it. "Not just me. You could too. It would be fair." "Fair? What the hell was fair about this?" I shook my head, trying to keep my voice steady. "Lisa, I don't want to be with anyone else. I married you because I love you. Because I wanted us." She sighed dramatically, running a hand through her hair. "I knew you'd react like this. How the hell else am I supposed to react?" I shot back. "Did something happen? Is there someone you already—" "No." She cut me off, a little too quickly. "God, no. I've been reading about it, hearing stories from people who say it made their marriage stronger. I thought maybe we could at least talk about it." I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. "No. There's nothing to talk about. I don't want that." She pursed her lips, then gave me this strange, almost pitying look. "I don't want you to feel like I'm trapped in this marriage." Trapped. That word stung more than anything else she had said. I stared at her for a long moment, then stood up. "I need some air." She didn't stop me as I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, trying to understand what had just happened. How long had she been thinking about this? Was this really just an idea, or was there more to it? Something in my gut told me this conversation wasn't the beginning. It was just the first sign of something much worse. I just didn't know it yet. After that night, something shifted. I wanted to believe that Lisa's suggestion of an open marriage was just a passing thought, some ridiculous idea she picked up from a podcast or a conversation with her friends. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it was more than that. I told myself that if things went back to normal, I'd forget about it. Move on. But they didn't. Lisa didn't bring up the open marriage idea again, but her behavior started changing in ways I couldn't ignore. Little things at first. She was suddenly glued to her phone more than usual, tilting the screen away from me when I walked by. When I asked her what she was doing, she'd shrug and say, "Just scrolling," before quickly locking her screen. She started dressing up more when she went out, even for things that didn't seem to require it. Before, she'd throw on yoga pants and a hoodie to run errands. Now, she was wearing makeup, styling her hair, and choosing outfits that looked more like she was going to a bar than a grocery store. And then there were the nights out. Lisa had always been social, but she suddenly had a lot more plans with friends, dinners, happy hours, girls' nights. At first, I didn't think much of it. She'd always been the type to have an active social life, but it was becoming more frequent. Too frequent. One Friday, I casually asked, "Who are you going out with tonight?" She hesitated. It was subtle, just for a fraction of a second, but I noticed. "Oh, just some girls from work," she said, grabbing her bag. "You wouldn't know them." I frowned. "Since when do you go out with work friends?" She gave me a quick, dismissive smile. "I mean, I do work with them. It's just drinks. Don't wait up, okay?" Then she was out the door before I could say anything else. That night, I sat on the couch, staring at the TV but not really watching. Something wasn't right. I wasn't the jealous type. I never had been. But for the first time in our marriage, I felt like I didn't fully know what Lisa was doing. I tried to push the thoughts away, to be rational. Maybe she really was just spending time with her coworkers. Maybe she had been thinking about an open marriage but decided against it after I shut it down. But then I noticed something else. Lisa had started pulling away. Not in an obvious way, but in small, calculated moments. She didn't text me as much during the day. She was more distant at home, always distracted, always busy. When I tried to cuddle up next to her on the couch, she'd shift away slightly, as if she didn't even realize she was doing it. And the biggest red flag? Our sex life. Or, more accurately, the lack of it. We had always been intimate, maybe not as much as when we were younger, but enough to feel connected. But suddenly, she just wasn't in the mood. Ever. There were excuses. She was tired, stressed, not feeling well. I told myself that it was normal, that every couple goes through dry spells. But in the back of my mind, a darker thought crept in. What if she wasn't interested in me anymore? What if she had already found someone else? I hated myself for even thinking it. Lisa wouldn't do that. She loved me. She said she just wanted to talk about an open marriage, not actually cheat. Right? But something was gnawing at me, a feeling I couldn't shake. And soon enough, I'd have a reason to stop doubting myself. Because the truth was about to hit me like a freight train. The unease in my gut didn't go away. If anything, it got worse. Lisa's behavior continued to shift in ways that were hard to ignore. She was on her phone constantly, smiling at messages she never shared. When I asked about them, she'd laugh and say, "Just memes," before flipping her screen down. Her nights out were more frequent, and her explanations became vaguer. One Saturday morning, she came home later than usual from her so-called girls' night. I was already up, drinking coffee at the kitchen table when I heard the door click open. Lisa stepped in quietly, like she was hoping I wouldn't notice. "Late night?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. She froze for just a second before forcing a smile. "Yeah, we went to a second place after dinner." I lost track of time. I glanced at the clock. 3:30 a.m. I wanted to ask why she hadn't texted me, why she smelled like men's cologne when she walked past me, why her hair looked slightly disheveled like someone had been running their fingers through it. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I watched as she disappeared into the bathroom, taking longer than usual to shower. That was the moment I stopped trying to convince myself I was overreacting. I decided to start paying attention. The next time she went out, I checked her location on the phone tracking app we had always shared. It was something we used for convenience. If one of us was picking up food, we'd check the app to see how far away we were. But now, for the first time, I was using it for something else. And I saw nothing. Her location was turned off. She had never done that before. A sick feeling spread through my chest, but I still tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe her phone died. Maybe she turned it off accidentally. So I tested it. The next morning, I asked, "Hey, where'd you guys end up last night?" She was making coffee, her back turned to me. "Oh, just the usual bar downtown." Liar. I knew for a fact she wasn't downtown. I had checked the app before she turned it off, and she had been somewhere across the city, nowhere near where she claimed to be. I clenched my jaw and took a slow breath. I wanted to call her out right then and there, demand the truth, shake the lies out of her. But I held back. If she was already lying this smoothly, I needed more than just a gut feeling. I needed proof. I started noticing more things. The sudden gym obsession, but never wanting me to go with her anymore. The way she was dressing up, putting more effort into her looks, even when she claimed she was just running errands. The nervous way she acted when I walked past her while she was texting. Then there were the work trips. Lisa never used to travel much for work, but suddenly, she had to go out of town for a couple of nights here and there. It was always last minute, always a mandatory event. She'd pack light, kiss me on the cheek, and tell me not to worry. But I was worried. So, the next time she left, I checked the hotel she supposedly booked. A simple call to the front desk was all it took. "Hi, I'm trying to confirm a reservation for Lisa last name," I said, keeping my voice steady. The woman on the other end paused. "I'm sorry, sir, but we don't have anyone under that name checked in." I felt my stomach drop. "Are you sure? Maybe under a different name." "No, sir. We don't have any record of that reservation." I thanked her and hung up. My hands were shaking as I placed my phone down on the table. She had lied. Again. Lisa wasn't where she said she was. And if she wasn't at a work event, where the hell was she? I had been hoping, deep down, that I was wrong. That all of this was just paranoia. That I was being some jealous, overthinking husband. But this wasn't in my head anymore. This was real. And I was going to find out the truth. Lisa's behavior was getting worse. And at this point, I wasn't just suspicious. I was convinced something was going on. But the problem was, I still didn't have proof. No real evidence, just gut feelings and inconsistencies. And Lisa? She wasn't even trying to hide how different she was acting. She was distant. Conversations felt forced, her smiles didn't reach her eyes anymore. She barely kissed me goodbye in the mornings, and when she did, it was rushed, like she was fulfilling an obligation rather than showing affection. Then there were the nights out. She had more girls' nights than ever before, but I never saw any proof that she was actually with her friends. No group pictures, no stories about funny moments. Whenever I asked how the night went, her answers were vague. It was fun. Just the usual. Nothing exciting. And then came the late returns home. One night, she stumbled and past 3 a.m., whispering into her phone before noticing me standing in the hallway. She jumped like she wasn't expecting me to be awake. I crossed my arms. "Who were you talking to?" She hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. "Oh, just Sophie," she said, naming one of her work friends. "She got home safe. I was just checking in." A perfectly reasonable excuse. Except her voice was off. The way she avoided my eyes. The way she casually slid her phone into her back pocket as if she didn't want me to see the screen. Something inside me twisted. "I didn't hear your car pull in," I said carefully. "Where were you?" She forced a laugh. "I parked down the street. There wasn't any space up front." Lie. There had been plenty of space when I checked earlier. I stared at her, but she wouldn't meet my gaze. I wanted to press her further, to demand the truth right then and there. But I knew Lisa. She was a master at twisting words, at flipping the conversation to make me look like the paranoid one. So instead, I just nodded slowly. "Okay," I said. "Glad you had fun." And I walked past her, leaving her standing there in the dimly lit hallway. But that night, as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I made a decision. This wasn't in my head anymore. Lisa was hiding something. And whether she liked it or not, I was going to find out exactly what it was. It happened on a Thursday. I wasn't supposed to be home early. Lisa knew that. She had gotten used to my routine, used to the predictability of my schedule. That's why she got careless. I had a meeting that afternoon, but the client rescheduled last minute. So instead of working late, I decided to surprise Lisa. Maybe take her out to dinner, try to bring back some of what had been slipping away. But Lisa had other plans. When I pulled into the driveway, I immediately noticed something was off. For one, her car was there. That was unusual, she always worked late on Thursdays. But that wasn't what made my stomach tighten. It was the second car parked just a few feet away. A car I recognized. My best friend's car. At first, I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe he had stopped by to say hello. Maybe something had happened, and he needed help. But deep down, I already knew. My hands were shaking as I unlocked the front door. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Then I heard it. A sound I will never forget for as long as I live. A muffled moan. Lisa's voice. Coming from our bedroom. The rage hit me so fast, so hard, I could barely think. My vision blurred as I stormed down the hall, heart pounding, breath coming in short, sharp bursts. I didn't hesitate. I didn't stop to brace myself. I just shoved the door open. And there they were. Lisa, my wife, on all fours in our bed. And behind her, my so-called best friend. For a moment, time froze. Lisa's eyes met mine, and her face twisted in horror. My friend, no, that bastard, stumbled back, scrambling for the sheets to cover himself. I felt nothing. No sadness. No heartbreak. Just pure, burning rage. What the fuck is this? My voice came out louder than I expected, shaking with fury. Lisa was already stammering, pulling the blankets around herself. I can explain. Explain. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Are you actually about to sit there and fucking explain this to me? My friend, let's call him Mark, held up his hands like I was pointing a gun at him. Man, I didn't let him finish. I lunged. I grabbed his clothes from the floor and threw them at him, shoving him toward the door. Get the fuck out of my house. Wait. I cut him off with a shove so hard he nearly tripped over his own feet. I said get the fuck out. He didn't argue after that. He grabbed whatever he could and bolted, half-dressed, out of the house. Lisa sat there on the bed, shaking, eyes wide with fear. I turned to her, voice dangerously low. You. Get dressed. Get the fuck out of my house. Now. Tears welled in her eyes. Please, let's talk about this. Talk? I barked out a laugh, running a hand through my hair. You mean the way you talked to me before fucking my best friend in our bed? I made a mistake, she choked out. I love you, Aya. No, I snapped. You don't. If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. You knew what you were doing. You chose this. She sobbed harder, but I didn't care. I grabbed her phone from the nightstand and threw it against the wall. I bet this is why you wanted an open marriage, huh? So you could fuck him without feeling guilty? She didn't answer. Just sat there, shaking. I took a step back, my chest rising and falling with deep, furious breaths. Then I pointed to the door. Get out. She hesitated for half a second before scrambling to grab her clothes. I watched as she dressed in silence, her hands trembling. As she walked past me, she reached out, like she wanted to touch me. Please, just... I stepped away. Don't. Just fucking go. She swallowed hard, then disappeared down the hallway. As soon as I heard the front door close, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. And then, I walked over to the closet. I grabbed all of her clothes, her bags, her shoes. And one by one, I tossed them out the bedroom window onto the front lawn. Then I grabbed my keys, drove to the hardware store, and bought a brand new lock. By the time Lisa came back, crying, begging me to let her in, the locks had already been changed. She banged on the door, pleading. Please. Let's talk. I messed up, Aya. I stood on the other side, arms crossed, voice cold. You don't live here anymore. And I walked away. Lisa pounded on the door for nearly 20 minutes. I stood in the living room, arms crossed, listening to her cries turn into desperate sobs. Please, please, just let me explain. I was stupid. It didn't mean anything. I almost laughed at that. Didn't mean anything? She spread her legs for my best friend in our bed, then had the nerve to act like it was just some small mistake? I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. I wouldn't let her see me break. After another 5 minutes, she finally realized I wasn't opening the door. She stopped pounding and slumped against it, her voice barely above a whisper. Where am I supposed to go? Not my problem. I turned and walked upstairs, looking out the bedroom window as she stood there on the porch in the dark. I had already thrown all of her shit onto the lawn, clothes, shoes, purses. It was all sitting in a pathetic pile under the dim glow of the streetlights. After a moment, she finally walked over and started picking through the mess, sobbing as she shoved things into a bag. Good. She could take it and go straight to hell for all I cared. But I wasn't done yet. Lisa had made her bed. Now, she was going to rot in it. The first call, destroying Mark's career. I sat down on the couch, pulled out my phone, and made the first call. Mark worked for me. I was the one who had hired him, trained him, paid him a generous salary. And that ended tonight. The moment his name popped up, I pressed call. It rang twice before he picked up, his voice cautious. Look, man, you're fired. Silence. What? He finally stammered. You heard me. You're fired. Don't show up to work tomorrow. Don't ever contact me again. Come on, man, he said, his voice rising. You can't be serious. It was just. I hung up before he could finish his sentence. I wasn't interested in hearing his excuses. A second later, my phone buzzed. A text from Mark. Mark, please, can we just talk? I fucked up. I know, but I can't lose my job over this. I stared at the message for a moment before typing back. Me, should have thought about that before you fucked my wife. Then I blocked his number. Lisa still had access to our joint bank account. That wouldn't last much longer. I logged into my banking app and transferred everything, every last cent, into my personal account. Then, I called the bank and had them freeze the joint account completely. By morning, Lisa would have nothing. No money. No home. No husband. She wanted a taste of the single life? Well, she was about to get it. By the time I finished, Lisa had collected most of her things from the lawn. She was sitting on the curb now, her head in her hands. She looked so small, so pathetic. For the first time in our marriage, I felt nothing for her. No sympathy. No love. Just cold, bitter satisfaction. She pulled out her phone, probably to call one of her friends. Too bad for her. I had already started texting people. I sent out one simple message to all of our mutual friends, keeping it short and to the point. Lisa cheated on me with Mark. I caught them in our bed. I've kicked her out. Do what you want with that information. One by one, the replies started coming in. No way. I knew she was acting weird lately. I'm so sorry, man. She's dead to me. Lisa was about to find out exactly what it felt like to be completely alone. The final goodbye. I stood by the window, arms crossed, watching her as she sat there, staring at her phone. She must have seen the messages by now. Then, slowly, she stood up. She turned toward the house, staring at the door like she was about to come back and try again. And that's when I turned off the lights. I didn't need to hear anything else she had to say. Lisa wasn't my problem anymore. By the next morning, Lisa's world was crumbling, and I was enjoying every second of it. I woke up early, feeling lighter than I had in months. No more lies, no more suspicion, no more pretending things were fine. Lisa was out of my life, and I planned to keep it that way. But for Lisa, reality was finally setting in. The first desperate calls. Around 8 a.m., my phone started buzzing nonstop. Lisa, block number please. Just talk to me. Let me explain. I made a mistake, but I love you. Please don't do this. I have nowhere to go. Good. I deleted every message without responding. I wasn't interested in hearing a single excuse. She hadn't cared about our marriage when she was sneaking around behind my back. Why should I care now? Then came the calls from mutual friends. Dude, she's a wreck, one of my buddies texted. She tried calling me last night, crying her eyes out. Wants to meet up and explain her side. Let her rot, I replied. Because what side was there to explain? I had literally caught her in the act. There was no misunderstanding, no twisted version of the truth she could spin. Lisa had made her choice. And now, she was paying for it. As if dealing with Lisa's desperation wasn't enough, Mark had the nerve to show up at my office later that day. I was in the middle of a meeting when my secretary knocked on the door. There's a man outside asking to see you, she said cautiously. He won't leave. I didn't even have to ask who it was. I stood up, straightened my tie, and walked out to the lobby. And there he was, Mark, looking like absolute shit. Dark circles under his eyes, hair a mess, like he hadn't slept. 5 minutes, I said coldly. Then you get the hell out. He swallowed hard. Look, man, I know I fucked up. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I'm begging you, please, don't let this ruin my life. I crossed my arms. Ruin your life? You ruined your own life the second you crawled into my bed with my wife. I wasn't thinking, he stammered. It just happened. I laughed, shaking my head. Oh, it just happened? What? You tripped and fell inside my wife. Mark's face flushed red. He had no excuse. No defense. Just guilt and desperation. Please, he tried again. I lost my job. I lost my friends. Lisa isn't even talking to me. Oh, I cut in. Lisa's not talking to you? What a shame. I leaned in, lowering my voice. Did you really think she was going to choose you? That you two were going to ride off into the sunset? Mark looked down, silent. That's the thing about cheating, Mark, I said. If she could do it to me, she could do it to you. I patted his shoulder mockingly. Welcome to the real world, buddy. Then I turned around and walked away, leaving him standing there like the pathetic piece of shit he was. Lisa's last attempt. By the time I got home that evening, I thought I was done with the drama. But Lisa had one more card to play. She was waiting on the front porch. Her makeup was smudged from crying, her hair was a mess, and she looked like she hadn't slept all night. For a second, I almost didn't recognize her. But I felt nothing. No sympathy. No pity. Just cold, unwavering resolve. "Why are you here?" I asked flatly. Her lip trembled. "I don't have anywhere else to go." "Not my problem." I leaned against the door frame. "You should have thought about that before you blew up our marriage." She wiped at her face. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I was just lost." "Bullshit," I snapped. "You chose this. And now, you get to live with the consequences." She swallowed hard, looking at me like she was hoping I'd break. "But I didn't." "I still love you," she whispered. "I know I don't deserve it, but I do." I scoffed. "Love? You don't love me. You loved having me. You loved the stability, the home, the life I gave you. But you didn't love me." She let out a shaky breath. "So that's it." I nodded. "That's it." Lisa's shoulders slumped, and for the first time, I think she truly understood. There was no fixing this. No second chances. She had lost me. Completely. Without another word, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the night. And I closed the door, locking it behind her for the last time. It's been a few weeks since Lisa walked away for the last time. At first, I expected to feel something. Regret, sadness, maybe even guilt. But instead, all I felt was relief. No more lies. No more wondering. No more waiting for the other shoe to drop. Just peace. Word got around fast. Our mutual friends dropped her like a bad habit. The people she thought would have her back? They saw her for what she really was. A liar. A cheater. Someone not worth their time. She tried reaching out a few more times, random emails, messages from unknown numbers. Apologies. Excuses. Promises that she had changed. I ignored them all. Then, one day, the messages stopped. Last I heard, she was crashing at her sister's house, struggling to find her footing. No job. No home. No money. And Mark? He wasn't doing any better. He lost his job, his reputation, and whatever fantasy he had about him and Lisa being together. She dumped him almost immediately after realizing she had nothing left. Karma has a funny way of working itself out. As for me, I've been good. Better than I thought I'd be. I threw out everything that reminded me of her. Got new furniture, repainted the bedroom, even replaced the damn bed. I started hitting the gym again, focusing on myself in ways I hadn't in years. For so long, I put everything into my marriage, into Lisa. Now, I was putting that energy back into myself. And for the first time in a long time, I felt alive. The divorce papers went through faster than I expected. It was clean. No assets to fight over. No drawn-out legal battle. Lisa didn't even contest it. She signed the papers and disappeared from my life for good. The day I got the final confirmation, I sat on my back porch, sipping a beer, watching the sun go down. And for the first time, I really let myself breathe. I had spent so much time being angry, being hurt. But now, I was free. No more Lisa. No more betrayal hanging over my head. Just me, my future, and the life I was finally ready to start again.